Hi, everybody. Okay. Thank you so much for joining my talk. It's incredible how many people are interested in privacy and not really in me. So thank you so much for joining this matter. Just some words about me. My name is Tedeschi. I have a degree in physics, and I started to work a lot of years ago with some big companies in Italy, like Telecom, Telespazio, company from the government. Then I did an experience as a computational linguistic expert a lot of time ago, and that was a nice experience for me because in that time I theorized a new way for making automatic translation, the new theory, and after a while we discovered that this theory was wrong. But by the way, this make the company open to the automatic translation market with talking with Google. So this was a very good experience. And then it's almost 10 years that I work in the cloud storage environment. So I have done one of the biggest cloud storage in Europe, that it's Memopal. Memopal is a software that backups data from the computer to a cloud environment, exactly like Dropbox, and we work in Europe. So for 10 years, I managed users' data, and this job bringed me in a lot of strange places. I've been talking with the Kazakh government, with Turkey government, Google interested in our technology, and I did a lot of talk like this. And in this experience, there is one story that I would like to share with you. Our contract with the Turkish government started in 2009. They were interested in our technology and they bought the service. And we served the Turkey users from Italy. Then, in 2014, they asked to us to move data to Turkey. So we built a data center for them, and we moved it transparently for the user data in their country. In 2015, all the telco companies were nationalized, and then we thought that we lose the contract, but not yet. We didn't lose the contract. Then they asked us to enforce the contract. And then in 2016, I think as you all know, there were the failed coup in Turkey. So I don't know if there are relations in this, but before the coup, there were many growing of attention in users' data. So this matter for all of us that work with users is very, very important. So, and with data, we can do crimes. For example, this is something crazy that happens with bike. The thief follow bikers with sharing application and steal bikes. But there are also murder by find friends with Google, and some stuff like this happens. And one thing I would like to add, the perception of people is that their privacy is lost. So every one of us think that Google knows everything, the CIA knows everything. So and one more thing, Mark Zuckerberg, when there were the stuff with Russian, the government asked to Mark Zuckerberg to reply that they didn't make a law. They weren't able to control the data. They asked to a company that does information technology to answer. So the privacy problem is our problem, not government problem, not police problem. We will take care of the user's privacy. And let me add one thing. This is an ad from 1969, I think, of the Volkswagen Beetle. This is an ad from an iPhone. We are following the same step of car industry. And in 1984, the safety belt were introduced by the law. And today, everyone wears a safety belt, and it's normal. The car ads are sold because of they are safe. So today, the GDPR is a regulation from the Europe that stands how we should make our software. And it's applied to all citizens, all European citizens, and this is not important where is the company or where are the data. If we are talking about EU citizen, then the GDPR apply. And the definition of personal data means any information that can identify someone. Name, surname, photo, or for example, just the name, but the company where I work. These start to be personal data. So, one more thing, the burden of proof. The GDPR says that we should be able to prove that we have done our job well. So, the scope of this talk, there are many, many things to say, but I would like to give you an introduction on all the things that we have to do with some deep things more on some key points that I think we should all would understand. And finally, an example on how we have managed privacy in our cloud environment. So, in all company, we deal with three kinds of data. First, employee. We bring our data in company, our salary, and a lot of things that belong to us. Then the customers, the personal data of our customers. This is how the company runs its business. And third, data from users. Today I would like to talk only on how to manage data that come from users. This data, now, let's take a deep breath and start and say how we are going to do this. So there are many, many things that we should do. So understand, define, map, choose. I would like you to focus in your company on the map data flows in this talk. I would like to describe this part of the GDPR. But you should follow all of this step. So in any company, the data comes from somewhere. Then they are stored somewhere, are processed in any ways that can be read, print, or update, then are stored again, can be externally processed, and finally it will be backed up and deleted. Yeah, in the GDPR said we should delete this data at a certain point in time. I would like to focus on how we store data. So, let's say what data can be. So, there are different types of data. There are direct identifier, in which I mean name, surname, age, identify exactly a person. This is a direct identifier. It's me, for example. Can be an indirect identifier. So, for example, name, sex, age, and company. This is not a direct identifier, but you can understand easily who I am. And then there is this bit different. Personal information is my name, Evan Tedeschi, and my weight, 100 kilograms. But if my weight is 200 kilograms, then the same information became a particular information that need more attention. So be careful when you collect users' data. And I would like to add one thing important. In the introduction, you should always keep in mind the focus, why we do this. We are going to keep users' data safe because this data in the wrong hand can do big damages. So for this example, think always that this data can have, in the bad hand, can do very bad things. So for this reason, particular information need attention, and any data can be changed and become a particular information. This data that are in the company then can be stored on premises, because there are many software houses that sell software, and this software runs some database, and the database are stored on the customer. Then, in-house, because my company has data in the house or in the cloud, because we all run some cloud environment, then the data are there. We will talk about this. Then, the first step that you should take care is to inform the user on what you are doing. So you need just to write down a piece of paper on your website and clearly describe your identity, contacts, the purpose, why you are collecting this data, the recipients, and the period of storage, so when you will delete this data, and there is existence of a process of automatic decision. This is very important. I will give you an example for the bank. If you take with artificial intelligence a process for giving or not a loan, then the user should be able to say no to this process and ask for a manual review. And you should take care of all this process of saying no and to be transparent with the user. So this is very important since the artificial intelligence is growing in our companies. And one big question is, should I ask the explicit content to the user? Well, no, if you are doing what the law requires to you. Yes, in all other cases. If I need your data to make you an invoice, there is no need of asking an explicit content. For any other use, yes. But the explicit content can be provided orally, written, by phone, in any way, by email. You should have to prove, remember, that you have informed the user. And the content can, you have to write down somewhere that you take this content, and the user can say, no, I don't want this content anymore, and you should delete this data. I will talk about this later. So the content, yes, in all cases that are more than required by the law. Let's see, this is a big point of confusion when we talk about GDPR. We are talking about the data that we store in the company, and a lot of people said that I need to pseudonymize or anonymize this data. But we all know that if I need to work on the data cannot be cryptographed. I need to work on clear data. So the first thing is the different by the law. Pseudonymization means that I can re-identify the users with some additional information. An anonymized set of data means that in any way I cannot rebuild the personal information. And please keep in mind that the additional information must be kept separately. So it's a nonsense in the same database do some pseudonymization. Data should be kept separately, different object. Okay. So the different are that when I am dealing with pseudonymized data or personal data, any kind of personal data, I have to guarantee a lot of things. I have notice, I have to obtain the consent, the get right to erasure, to inform the data subject right, update, delete. I have to the base cross-border transit if I need to move this data, the data security, data breach notification to the regulator, and a lot of stuff that with anonymized data I cannot have to do. But this not means that I should anonymize data in my company. Data in my company are the data that I need, and I need to take care of this data in the best way that I can. And these are the best practice that are already in place in the most of company. So, in the anonymized way, I mean cryptography or any kind of anonymized data set, there is no need for doing this. The GDPR suggests some technique for pseudonymized data. some of this technique can destroy the integrity of data. So, for example, the noise addiction means to add a random value to my weight. So 100 kilograms plus or minus 20 kilos, or the substitution means to scramble some data, but these are kind of destroying data that we need to work, or the aggregation. Instead of keeping in mind the exact age, I keep from 20 to 30. But we are going to talk about only hashing and tokenization. So the way in which we keep the integrity of the data. These are the techniques that I suggest and we took in place for pseudonymized our software. There is one thing that I would like to add about the right to be forgotten and the backups. This is things that we will deal in the next year, so it's something for the future. When you plan your software and your backup, we all do backup of the whole data set and we store them somewhere. When we come in a company, it's often we find backups of all the history of the company. This backup cannot be changed in any way. One day, I think in the next couple of years, people will ask the right to be forgotten also for the backup set of the company. This will really change the shape of all our software, because no one that I know is able to update the backup set and to guarantee the right to be forgotten to the user. So also, when you design your software, keep in mind this, that data should be aggregated per users in order to guarantee its right. And this is the future. In the future, this will be a big challenge. So let's see how we implemented all this to our technology. The cloud storage I've worked for, it's 1.5 million users. We have actually 2 data centers, but in the past we had some more. And we insert more than 100,000 of files per day with 600 of servers, and obviously a very big database. So the component in which the software is built is perfectly compliant to the GDPR. Why? Because we have, I described the hardware component and the data that are inside. So we had a front-end servers that with username and password that the users know. Then we pass through a single sign-on layer that knows only the passwords. Then there are some account data that get a user ID and hashing technique for doing a user ID. Then we identify the token. We forgot the user, and we start to identify only the device with a token. The difference between token and hash is that the hash, it comes from user's data with a mathematical function. The token, not. Okay, this means that from the users, I can generate a hash, but not a token. A token is a completely randomized set. Then we have built a virtual file system that contains anonymized metadata, I mean file names. And finally, there is a file hash with the metadata related to the metadata from the user. There is a link here, and the storage. So every pieces of user's data is splitted with a technique named segregation of duties. So every person in the company takes care of one part of user's data. So we have username and password, only the user has, or two-factor authentication, any kind of authentication that identifies the person. After that, different person in the company takes care of different aspects of the user privacy. None of them can identify the person and relate them to the user's data alone. This is an important part in order to guarantee privacy to the users. There are some ISO standards that also describe this path. Basically, everything starts from the quality standards, but now there is a 270018 that takes care of privacy in the cloud. You can also follow this step to describe how your company deals with privacy, but basically the segregation of duties is a part of it. So, on top on this technology, we added cryptography. As you can see, we implemented pseudonymization and cryptography, but we can work with user data. We can access any part of the database. So we have the DB admin can work on the big database of files, and the support can look at files, file names if there is a problem with the users. The financial can do its job with the user if there are some needs on that. So all the data are pseudonymized, but we can still work there, and all process is reversible. We have not destroyed any part of the data with aggregation or other techniques. So then we added the cryptography in order to be a zero-knowledge technology. What does it mean? In the end-to-end encryption is a technique that ensures mathematically that the communication between me and you can only be read by who is talking and no one in the middle. For this reason, at this layer, the storage file, we gave to the users a couple of keys, private and for asymmetric encryption, private and public. We keep the public key, the user the private key. With this key, for every file, we generate an symmetric key. The symmetric key is encrypted with the public key of the user and stored in the cloud storage. In this way, only the user can decrypt that file with the symmetric key. And in this way, we are really a zero-knowledge company, because in no way we can identify the user. We have no need of reading content of files. So for this reason, we can fully encrypt this data. The pseudonymization and cryptography technique in the GDPR the purpose is for security. This not means that I should not manage this data, but I should demonstrate that they have done everything, that if someone stole this data are protected. In this way, if a hacker attacks me, he cannot have ever access to personal data, just because the only things that were in trouble were the file content, but now it's encrypted. So in this way, we took in place all part of the technology, and we guarantee the safety of data. Oh, please, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt myself, okay? Then, what if something happens? Because something happened. In any case, the matter is not if it happened, but it's when it happens. And believe me that there are a lot of people around that it's looking for your data, and in my career I saw, for example, a guy from Egypt that asked money because he found some bugs in the technology, and then things like that happens everywhere, but can be worse. Another day, the website of a big antivirus in Europe were substituted by a Palestinian flag. And how did they do this? Do you remember the fax technology, the paper by the phone? They send the fax with the signature of the owner of the website with And they said, we would like to change our DNS. So they received the fax, changed the DNS, and the day after, the website was hacked. Okay, so things happen in many, many ways. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And are we ready? We know what to do? Well, I think no. If you have a plan, also if you are a good guy, you have a plan, but you have not tested this plan. And when I say tested, I mean to put in place your plan. Well, it's like having no plan. So in this part, I would like to suggest you to give you elements to test a plan in your company. So, as we saw, the focus in this part is not on prevention, because we have already put in place everything to do perimeter security, internal pseudonymization, but now it's on detection. Because as I told you, that they hacked the website with a fax, things can happen in a way that you cannot predict. So there are many, many things to take care. I just would like to say something. The first is that the cybersecurity incidents are very fast, destructured, and diverse from what you expect. Another friend of mine, he runs a television on the web, and the first day he published a new anime tune, well, a lot of denial of service attack from printers obscured his website. We think it's from some competitors, but these were not predictable, and no firewall can stop this. So try to detect. So they can use a lot of data, a lot of source, and they can have a severe impact in cost and reputation. And the traditional business continuity management is not effective, because what if they are attacking your data, the integrity of your data? Then 10 years ago, we started Memopal as a backup with unlimited version, because the data set of a company were compromised, but no one recognized it. Then the backup were compromised. Then the 1 week after backup were compromised during the summer. So the company lost all data because no one was looking at this. So the traditional continuity management with a high availability machine and disaster recovery servers may not be effective everywhere. And also, when you talk with your managers, they may not understand the risk. And also, another thing that always happens is that you learn of a security breach from outside, from someone that writes to you, from data on Twitter, from social networks. And there is someone in your company that is able to manage the news when it is viral, so how to reply. And also someone that should ensure investors, customers, that everything is under control, and talk with the regulators to say that we have done the best. These are stuff that you should test before to be ready. Not because when it happens, you have 20 minutes to do this. Okay, so take care of this situation. So, but if there is a mess in the cybersecurity problems, the reply is pretty structured, and this can be easy. So you should plan and prepare what to do based on a framework that you prepared before. The first thing is to identify what happened, and then contain the data loss. And after, you can start an investigation. Why did it happen? And you should involve all departments, not only the tech, the dev, but also the IT, the hiring, the marketing, because this has an impact on all the company. And finally, find the remediation and follow up, decide what to do, and then begin from the top again. and do this kind of stuff twice or 3 times a year. Then I suppose that we are mostly developers here, so I just would like to share with you what happened when you have in your company a data breach and you are not ready, we are not ready for this. So your chief comes to you and asks you to identify what's happening. Well, you have no information, you have a deep know of your technology, but you should reply not in 1 week, but in few minutes where the data came from. In this case, my suggestion is trust yourself. Believe, understand, go deep in your code, in your logs, and we after some experience, started to done some heuristic search in the logs in order to identify potential threat by the log analysis. So how many calls of that kind are on all servers? This kind of monitoring is part of a prevention, but it's something good that you can do. So, and if there are questions, you're welcome, and thank you very much. Any question? Please.
Yes. So
Yeah?
and it's EU citizens.
A citizen living in a country of the European Union.
Does that also apply to?
No, people residential in EU.
Right, so you already need to identify
Yeah.
somebody is living.
If your company works only with American citizen, then you are not sustaining the GDPR, but you have to prove that are only from American citizen, and perhaps you do not store them in the EU. No, but apply in any way. You should ask it. You may ask. You have the IP address. There are some sentences from the Court of the EU regulation, for example. Someone asked that using the IP address to recognize the user may be subject to the GDPR. Well, there is another principle in the GDPR that is the effort that you have to spend to understand the personal information of the user. Getting together IP address and some personal information may be hard, so this may not represent a threat for the GDPR, but it depends on your case. But by the way, if your company is in Europe, that are stored in Europe, well, you should apply the GDPR because you are not even sure where your data come from. But by the way, yeah. But think that these are all best practice. That you would do this in any case. Please.
Where do you store the private key of the user?
Sorry?
Where do you store the private key of the user?
The private key of the user. This is a good question because we spent a lot of time for thinking how to tell the user not to save the key on the computer. well, I have designed a window that cannot be saved on the computer, and I am asking to the user, write down this phrase, because we translated the private key in phrase, or take a picture with your phone to this QR code. We take example from the private wallet of the blockchain, of the Bitcoin. If you remember, there are some software that done things like this. So we force the user not to store the private key on the computer. And it's a very hard but important to make the user understand this. Some customer from us asked us not to have the encryption just because they do not want to handle the private key, because without the private key, data are lost, and communicate clearly. If you're encrypting user data, then the private key should be safe. So forcing the user to store this not on the computer is a good practice. Be creative, find any things that there are in place, but yes, this is a best practice. Please.
About credit cards and payments. If you have to store the credit card from a client, are there any integrated documentation that you have to follow?
Well,
Of course, encrypted, that's fine, but do you have a time that you have to delete, or you can keep it forever? And my second question is, if you use a gateway for payments, are you responsible also for the data that you send?
okay, there are two different questions. Okay, the first one is that credit card numbers without email, without username, without any personal information. Okay, consider some pseudonymized data set or tokenized data set only with the clear credit card. Well, this data set is, we apply the security, the normal security of the company, but not the GDPR security, because there are no personal information in it. Credit card is a sensible information, but not a personal identifier information. So, for example, if I'm giving all the credit card number to another company for doing some analysis with no personal information, I have not to notify the user that I'm doing this, for example. The gateway is a different. Often there is a person in the company that works with the gateway and all the information that are stored in the gateway. The gateway takes care of the best practice for storing data, but you have to demonstrate that the person that works with the gateway is trained for doing this job. And this is what the EU asks to you. Demonstrate that the person are trained to work. Inform is the first thing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The GDPR did not say a period. You should decide this, but you should have an expiration. Okay, and the user should be informed. Okay, my time is finished. Please write me an email if you want some information. I will be happy to help you. Thank you.